Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Sentiment is fickle analysis. http ntvforex.com news ID 63B48C 8/30/2022 46:20 p.m. Sentiment is a fickle lover. NBSP it blows hot and cold quickly, though not entirely without reason. NBSP for traders, it is often the deus ex machina. Sentiment had swung so hard against the dollar that astute observers and the leading financial press warned that its role in the world economy was in jeopardy. The greenback recovered from the initial slide on the Federal Reserve's confirmation that it was adopting an average inflation target. NBSP those upticks were cited by some pundits as evidence that announcement was well-tipped sell the rumor by fact and that the dollar's bad news has been discounted in the move lower since the end of March. NBSP however, European and Asian participants took advantage of the North American price action to sell the dollar. NBSP new lows for the year were recorded against sterling and the Australian dollar ahead of the weekend. NBSP the euro, which is where the speculative interest has been the strongest, continues to struggle to sustain gains above the $1.19 level. That is the upper end of a 2-cent range that has mostly confined the price action this month, and it closed barely above there before the weekend. NBSP the jump in US bond yields helped lift the dollar to the upper end of the month's range 107 Japanese yen before sentiment swung against it again. Prime Minister Abe's resignation that had been rumored but we did not believe it raised issues about the trajectory of policy. NBSP the dollar fell hard toward the lower end of the month's range 105 Japanese yen before stabilizing. NBSP of the majors, sterling, the Australian dollar, and Canadian dollar appear to have broken out of their previous ranges. While the market continues to ruminate over the significance of the Fed's greater tolerance for inflation, the sustainability of the backup in yields, and the policy significance of the end of the Abe government in Japan, the economic calendar picks up. NBSP besides not raising interest rates simply because the 2% target is approached, it is not clear what the Fed will do to ensure that the target is indeed approached in the first place. NBSP given the state of the Japanese economy likely experiencing its first quarterly expansion in 4 and the disinflationary pressure if not deflation as Tokyo's August CPI hinted, it is difficult to see a dramatic change from Abenomics, which seemed to be the traditional LDP policy mix of expansionary monetary and fiscal policy while taxing consumption. NBSP although the New York and Philadelphia Fed manufacturing surveys disappointed, other economic data have mostly surprised on the upside. NBSP admittedly weekly jobless claims, and especially, continuing claims also disappointed. NBSP still, on balance, the high-frequency U.S. data has held up better than feared. NBSP the durable goods orders and the stronger-than-expected rise in personal consumption expenditures 1.6% in July versus median forecast of 1.3% in the Bloomberg survey and an upward revision in June from 5.2% to 5.7%. NBSP coupled with stronger-than-expected July consumption figures will prompt upward revisions to growth forecasts. The preliminary PMIs are typically so accurate that revisions in the final tend to be minor. NBSP the ISM is likely to confirm that the U.S. manufacturing sector is snapping back. NBSP the key here is the auto sector. NBSP in the July durable goods orders report on August 26, orders from motor vehicles and parts industry jumped almost 22% after an 85.6% surge in June. NBSP in contrast, orders for aircraft and parts continued to decline. NBSP Boeing had no new orders in July and only one in June. Manufacturing vehicles is one thing, and purchasing them is another. NBSP at a 14.52 mln seasonally adjusted annual rate in July, it was about 14% below sales figures in July 2019. NBSP August auto sales figures are not expected to change from July according to the Bloomberg survey, but we suspect there is scope for an upside surprise. NBSP that said, supply considerations low inventories of several brands including Toyota, Lexus, and BMW, according to industry reports. NBSP high levels of unemployment, the loss of $600 a week in federal unemployment insurance, and heightened uncertainty appear to be constraints on demand. The U.S. employment data, however, is the highlight of the week. NBSP recall that the U.S. non-farm payrolls collapsed by 22.1 MLN in March and April. NBSP in the 3 months through July, about 9.28 MLN workers returned, or about 42%. NBSP the median forecast in the Bloomberg survey is for another 1.575 MLN people returned in August. NBSP the average forecast was about 1.47 MLN, and the range was 750K to 2 MLN. NBSP with a little bit of luck, the unemployment rate can slip back below 10%, the peak in the Great Financial Crisis. NBSP some estimate that around a quarter of the overall job loss, 5.5 MLN people, may be permanent. NBSP that still leaves scope gradual improvement in the coming months. The manufacturing jobs filled in July 26K were a tenth of what economists had expected. NBSP around 1.35 MLN manufacturing jobs were lost in March and April, and in the following 3 months, a little more than half, 52% or 723K workers returned. NBSP economists reined in their forecasts for manufacturing jobs in August, but the median projection is for a robust 88K increase. NBSP 2 other sectors will attract interest. NBSP first is employment in the leisure and hospitality industry. NBSP in July, its 592K increase was about a third of the overall rise in non-farm payrolls. NBSP bars and restaurants accounted for the lion's share after growing 2.9 MLN in the previous 2 months. Employment is still about 2.6 MLN below February levels. NBSP second is government employment, which rose by 301K in July and is expected to increase by around 200K in August. NBSP seasonal adjustments in this unique year were a source of distortion as the loss of public sector teachers took place earlier. NBSP the federal government hired 27K people in July for temporary jobs related to the census. NBSP Canada also reports its July employment data on September 4. NBSP it has done a better job of bringing employees back than the US and appears to have been more cautious about relaxing social distancing protocols. NBSP after losing 3 MLN jobs in March and April, it has seen 1.66 MLN return, or 55%. NBSP on the other hand, of the 1.95 MLN full-time positions that were lost, only 40% have returned 781K. NBSP in addition to the final PMI readings, the Eurozone regales the market with the July retail sales and the first look at August CPI. NBSP retail sales were hammered in March and April, dropping 10.4% and 12.1%, respectively, before staging a V recovery, gaining 20.3% in May and 5.7% in June. NBSP in June, Eurozone retail sales were 1.3% above year-ago levels. NBSP the pace of recovery is likely to have slowed further in July to a still strong 1.7%. NBSP that would lift the year-over-year rate to 3.7%, the largest increase since November 2017. NBSP July U.S. retail sales were 2.7% year-over-year. Like other high-income countries, despite the low yields and rapid money supply growth, M3 rose 10.2% year-over-year in July, its fastest pace since May 2008. The Eurozone is hampered by low inflation. NBSP the headline pace may be halved from the 0.4% year-over-year increase reported in July, and the core may have slipped back to 0.8% from 1.2%. NBSP the core averaged 1.0% in each of the past 3 years, so the change in the core is relatively modest. The euro is hardly a significant culprit. It has risen about 5.4% against the dollar this year and about 3.5% on a trade-weighted basis. NBSP the OECD SPPP model sees the euro as almost 20% undervalued. NBSP 2 central banks meet next week, and both are interesting in their own rights. NBSP both the Reserve Bank of Australia and Chile meet on September 1. NBSP The RBA has kept its cash target at 25 BP and has targeted the 3-year yield also at 25 BP. NBSP Although the yield controls seemed to require little central bank action, it chose last month to boost its bond buying as the spreading virus threatened the recovery. In testimony to Parliament, Governor Lowe acknowledged that although he would prefer a weaker currency, it was broadly in line with fundamentals. NBSP The OECD's purchasing power parity model puts fair value near $0.6900. NBSP Lowe played down the benefit of negative interest rates and expressed confidence that the cash rate would remain where it was for the next 3 years. NBSP The Australian dollar is up about 1.2% in August against the US dollar and near its best levels since early 2019. NBSP Chile has among the lowest real policy rates in the world. NBSP Its overnight cash target was hiked by 25 BP to 3.0% in January 2019, which completed a 2-hike 50 BP tightening cycle. NBSP It unwound the hikes last June, cut another 50 BP in September, and NBSP 25 BP in October to finish the year at 1.75%. NBSP The Chilean economy contracted by 4.1% quarter-over-quarter in Q4 19. NBSP When the virus struck in March, the central bank slashed the cash target to 50 BP, where it has remained. NBSP Meanwhile, the CPI peaked near 4% in February and stood at 2.5% in July. NBSP The central bank has a 2%-4% inflation target. NBSP Ironically, the Chilean peso is the best performing of the major Latin American currencies, off about 4.3% against the dollar. NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors.